Welcome to Tales of Strange. Settle into your bed or on your couch and listen to this mysterious story. The story is called The Hollow Signal. Enjoy listening. The night the signal returned. The signal came back on a Thursday night, the kind of night people forget. Ethan Cole noticed because the static changed. At exactly 11:47 p.m., the radio on his desk, an old Zenith model with a cracked plastic casing, flickered to life without warning. A faint green glow spilled across his bedroom wall, illuminating posters that had begun to peel at the corners. Ethan sat up slowly, breath caught halfway in his chest. He hadn't turned it on. Static filled the room, but not the lazy, meaningless hiss he was used to. This was sharper, tighter, like something trying to organize itself. Outside, Ravenbrook lay still beneath a low blanket of fog. No cars passed. No wind stirred the pines. Even the distant hum of the highway was gone. Ethan swung his legs off the bed and stepped closer to the radio. The frequency needle trembled. Then the static shifted. It wasn't sound anymore. It was rhythm. Ethan's pulse quickened. He reached out, stopping just short of the tuning knob. The air around the radio felt cold. Not chilly, but hollow, like the space inside a freezer. A noise slipped through the speaker. Breathing. Not human. Too slow. Too measured. Ethan recoiled. Heart hammering. The breathing stopped abruptly, replaced by a high-pitched whine that made his teeth ache. He grabbed the radio and yanked the power cord from the wall. The sound died instantly. Silence crashed down. Across town, every digital clock blinked and reset to 12 a.m. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the radio now dark and inert in his hands. He waited for the fear to fade. It didn't. By morning, Ravenbrook pretended nothing had happened. At school, whispers circulated. Flickering lights, dead batteries, pets whining at walls. Ethan scanned the cafeteria for someone who looked as shaken as he felt. Mara Linwood sat alone near the windows, scribbling in a notebook. She noticed him watching. "Did your radio turn on last night?" she asked flatly. Ethan stiffened. "How did you—" "Because mine did too," she said. "And my mom's recorder. And the clocks." They exchanged a look neither of them liked. Something had returned to Ravenbrook. And it had been listening. Echoes in the static. The fog didn't lift the next morning. It clung to Ravenbrook's streets as if the town itself were reluctant to be seen, wrapping houses, cars, and trees in a pale gray blur. Ethan noticed it the moment he stepped outside. The air felt thick, heavy with moisture and something else he couldn't name. A faint pressure behind the eyes, like standing too close to a loudspeaker. At school, the usual noise felt wrong. Lockers slammed too loudly. Laughter echoed a second too long. Even footsteps seemed out of sync, as if the building were slightly delayed in responding to the students moving through it. Ethan found Mara at her locker before first period. "I checked the frequency," he said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Whatever it was, it doesn't belong to any civilian or military band. It's in between." Mara closed her locker with deliberate calm. "That's what scares me. Things don't just exist in between unless someone put them there." They were joined by Jonah Reyes, who looked like he hadn't slept. Dark circles clung stubbornly beneath his eyes. "My radio turned on too," Jonah blurted. "It said my name." Ethan and Mara froze. "That's not funny," Mara said. Jonah swallowed. "I'm not joking. It didn't sound like a voice exactly. More like it was remembering me." The bell rang, sharp and sudden. Jonah flinched. That afternoon, the forest road was closed. A police cruiser idled near the tree line, lights off but engine running. Yellow tape fluttered weakly between two signposts. Ethan spotted Caleb Moore leaning against his bike across the street, arms crossed. "They found something," Caleb muttered as Ethan and the others approached. "Or someone." "What do you mean?" Jonah asked. Caleb hesitated. "Missing dog, tore itself bloody trying to dig into the ground, like it heard something underneath." Ethan felt his stomach twist. The ground beneath the forest had always been wrong. His father used to say the soil out there was too warm, even in winter. That night, the signal returned. This time, Ethan was ready. He had rewired the radio, adding a crude recorder and shielding the casing with layers of foil and tape. When the dial glowed green again, he didn't unplug it. The static rolled in waves. Then came the pattern. 3 short bursts, a pause. 2 long, Morse code. Ethan's breath caught as he translated. ETHAN. The room grew colder. The radio crackled again, deeper now, resonant, as if the sound were coming from inside the walls. "You opened it," the signal whispered. Ethan staggered back, heart pounding. Across town, beneath the abandoned transmission facility, a sealed door vibrated for the first time in 30 years. The girl who didn't cast a shadow. Ravenbrook noticed Lily Harper was gone before it admitted it. Her bike lay on its side near the edge of Miller Street, one pedal still spinning lazily, as if she had only just fallen. Her backpack rested against a mailbox, unzipped, its contents neatly arranged on the sidewalk. Too neat. Like someone had taken the time to make sure nothing looked wrong. By the time the sun dipped behind the trees, patrol cars crawled through the neighborhood with their lights flashing, but sirens silent. Parents stood on porches, arms folded tight, eyes scanning the fog as if it might answer them. Ethan watched from across the street, the radio's last whisper still echoing in his ears. "You opened it." They met that night in Caleb's garage. The space smelled of oil and damp wood. Christmas lights were strung haphazardly along the ceiling, casting uneven shadows that seemed to shift when no one was looking. Jonah paced while Mara leaned against a workbench, flipping through her notebook. "It's not random," Mara said. "The signal is choosing people. Ethan, Jonah, now Lily." Jonah stopped pacing. "She never listened to the radio." Caleb frowned. Maybe she didn't have to. Ethan set his recorder on the workbench. "It's not just sound, it's resonance. The frequency bleeds through other things. Wires, soil, maybe even people." Jonah finished quietly. No one argued. They found Lily just after midnight. She was standing in the middle of Old Pine Road, barefoot, staring into the forest. Fog curled around her legs, swallowing her shadow entirely. Her eyes were open but unfocused, reflecting the distant glow of the transmission facility on the hill. "Mara," Ethan whispered. "She doesn't have a shadow." Mara's breath hitched. Lily turned slowly, her movements delayed, like a bad video feed catching up to itself. "You hear it too," she said. Her voice echoed, layered with something deeper. "It's louder under the ground." Jonah stepped back. "Lily Sitchum, where did you go?" She smiled, or something tried to. "It's not where," she replied. "It's when." The forest answered with a low, trembling hum. At that exact moment, miles away, Dr. Eleanor Voss sat bolt upright in her bed. Her walls were lined with yellowed papers and hand-drawn diagrams of waveforms that spiraled inward, collapsing in on themselves. A portable radio on her nightstand screeched to life, the same forbidden frequency cutting through the static. Dr. Voss closed her eyes. "They found it," she whispered. or it found them. She rose, already pulling on her coat. Outside, the abandoned transmission facility awakened, lights flickering on one by one, as if something inside had finally been given permission to wake up. The hour that wouldn't stay. Ravenbrook lost an hour on Friday. No announcement marked its passing. No sirens, no blackouts. Just a soft, collective absence that settled over the town like dust. People woke with the uneasy feeling of having missed something important. Coffee went cold, untouched. Cars idled in driveways with no memory of who had turned the keys. At 7 a.m., the school bell rang. At 7 a.m., again. Ethan noticed when his watch ticked backward. He stood in the hallway outside homeroom, eyes fixed on the second hand as it stuttered, paused, and then slid counterclockwise by 3 seconds. Around him, students laughed and talked, unaware, or pretending to be. Mara was not pretending. "Say the time," she whispered, stepping close. 7:02, Ethan said. She exhaled. "Good. It's staying put. For now." Lily Harper did not return home. Officially, she was found and released to her parents after an episode. Unofficially, the girl who came back avoided mirrors and slept with the lights on. When teachers asked where she'd been, Lily answered with dates that hadn't happened yet. Jonah visited her once. He came back shaking. "She asked me if my brother still screamed when the ground folded," he said, voice thin. "I never told her that." Caleb swore under his breath. The signal began appearing without radios, in fluorescent lights that pulsed in patterns, in the buzz of power lines, in the low-frequency thrum beneath the town, felt more than heard. Ethan mapped it on graph paper spread across his bedroom floor. The lines converged toward a single point, the abandoned transmission facility. "It's a hinge," he said to Mara over the phone. "Between times, between layers. Between us and whatever's listening," she replied. They reached Dr. Voss just before dusk. Her house crouched at the edge of the forest, half swallowed by ivy. Inside, the air smelled of dust and ozone. Dr. Voss listened without interrupting as Ethan described the signal, Lily, the missing hour. When he finished, she nodded once. "We called it the Hollow," she said. "Not a place, a condition, a thinning." Mara's pen scratched furiously. "You opened it." Dr. Voss's mouth tightened. "We measured it. That was enough." She turned to a chalkboard covered in spiraling diagrams. At the center was a date, circled again and again. 1992. "It learns by listening," Dr. Voss continued, "and it remembers better than we do." That night, the lost hour tried to come back. Ethan woke to the radio humming, unplugged, dismantled, impossible. The room shimmered, edges blurring as if reality were buffering. A pressure built behind his eyes. Images flooded in. Ravenbrook without people. The forest collapsed inward. The facility open wide, swallowing sound and light. Then a thought. Not his own. "You are early, but you will do," Ethan screamed. Across town, clocks lurched forward. The hour slammed into place. And in the transmission facility, a door labeled Access B unlocked itself with a tired, welcoming click. Access B. They shouldn't have gone at night. Every instinct Ethan had told him that darkness belonged to the signal now, that the hollow was strongest when the world was quiet enough to listen. But daylight felt like a lie in Ravenbrook, thin and unreliable. At least at night, the danger showed its shape. The transmission facility loomed at the top of the hill, its chain-link fence sagging inward like tired shoulders. Rust streaked the concrete walls, and the massive antenna tower cut into the sky. blinking a single red light that no one remembered authorizing. Caleb cut the fence with bolt cutters borrowed from his uncle's shed. The metal snapped louder than expected. All four of them froze, listening. Nothing came. "That's worse," Mara whispered. Inside, the air was warmer than it should have been. Not hot. Active. The corridor lights flickered to life as they stepped forward, responding to motion that hadn't existed here in decades. Dust lifted from the floor in slow spirals, hanging unnaturally long before settling again. Ethan's radio, strapped to his backpack, vibrated softly. "It knows," Jonah said. Ethan didn't answer. His attention was fixed on the sound beneath the sound, a low resonance that matched the rhythm of his heartbeat too closely to be coincidence. They found the door at the end of the lower corridor. Access B. The paint was fresher here, the metal less corroded. Someone had come back after the shutdown. Caleb reached for the handle. The moment he touched it, the world lurched. For an instant, Ethan was somewhere else. Ravenbrook, emptied. Cars abandoned mid-road. Houses dark and hollow. The forest stretched outward, roots breaking through asphalt, reclaiming everything. Above it all, the antenna tower screamed, not sound, but pressure, bending the air itself. Then he was back, gasping. Caleb lay on the floor, clutching his arm. "My hand," he whispered. "It's not right." His fingers were trembling, slightly out of sync, as if they were obeying instructions delayed by a fraction of a second. Jonah backed away. "We should leave." The door opened anyway. Access B led to a circular chamber lined with old monitors and recording equipment. Most were dead. One wasn't. Its screen glowed with a waveform Ethan recognized instantly. The forbidden frequency, stable and strong. At the center of the room stood a chair. Straps hung loosely from its arms. Mara swallowed hard. Human calibration. A speaker crackled. Dr. Voss's voice filled the room, recorded decades earlier. Test subject shows temporal displacement at sustained exposure. Memory degradation begins at 42 seconds. Jonah shook his head. They used people. They listened, Ethan said quietly, and the hollow listened back. The monitor pulsed. A new waveform overlaid the first. Erratic. Alive. Ethan's radio screamed, and somewhere deep beneath the facility, something adjusted its focus, not on the town, on them. The willing listener. The recording didn't end where it should have. Ethan realized it while the others argued in whispers behind him. The tape Dr. Voss had left running crackled softly, its timestamp stuttering, numbers slipping backward and forward as if unsure which moment it belonged to. This part was cut, Ethan said. Mara fell silent. Or erased. Jonah's eyes flicked toward the chair at the center of the chamber. On purpose? Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the waveform. It wasn't repeating anymore. It was responding. They shouldn't have stayed. Caleb's hand had begun to bruise in strange geometric patterns, veins darkening into branching shapes that pulsed faintly when the signal spiked. Every instinct said to run, to seal the facility behind them and pretend they'd never crossed the fence. But the hollow had already crossed into them. You said it listens, Mara said slowly, eyes fixed on the monitors. What if it only understands when someone listens back? Jonah stared at her. You don't mean... I do, Ethan said. The words surprised him with their certainty. They strapped him into the chair. The leather was cracked, stiff with age, but the restraints still worked. As Mara tightened the last strap, her hands shook. Ethan, she said, barely audible, you can say stop, He nodded, though he wasn't sure the words still applied. The radio was placed on his chest, its speaker angled toward his heart. Caleb looked away. The signal surged. Sound collapsed into pressure. Time stretched thin, transparent. Ethan felt himself unfolding, memories lifting away like loose pages caught in a current. He saw Ravenbrook before it was Ravenbrook. Trees unbroken, earth humming with a deep, patient rhythm. He saw the facility being built, concrete poured like a scar across the hill. He saw Dr. Voss younger, frightened, writing "Do not sustain contact" again and again in the margins of her notes. Then something else saw him. Not a face, a vast attention. "You listen willingly," it observed. Ethan tried to speak. No sound came. Few do. Fewer return whole. In the control room, alarms flickered to life. The waveform stabilized. For the first time since 1992, the hollow achieved coherence. Jonah shouted Ethan's name. Mara grabbed the release lever. The signal spiked. Angry now, sharp with hunger. "Do not close what you opened," it warned. Mara pulled the lever anyway. Ethan collapsed forward as the restraints released. The radio clattered to the floor, silent. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Ethan inhaled sharply. His eyes opened. They were reflecting a waveform that wasn't there. And somewhere deep beneath Ravenbrook, the hollow learned something new. It learned how to ask. What came back with him? Ethan didn't remember leaving the chair. He remembered the moment before listening ended. The sense of being weighed, measured, and set aside like a tool not yet needed. Everything after that arrived in fragments. Mara's voice stretched thin with panic. Jonah's hands gripping his shoulders, the taste of copper flooding his mouth. They got out before dawn. The facility let them go too easily. By morning, Ravenbrook had decided on a story. A transformer failure explained the flickering lights. A gas leak accounted for headaches and nausea. Lily Harper's parents told reporters their daughter was recovering. People nodded, relieved to be told what to forget. Ethan lay on his bed staring at the ceiling fan as it rotated in uneven loops. 1, 2, 3. Then it skipped. His phone buzzed, a text from Mara. "Are you awake?" "I don't think I slept," he typed back. Across town, Caleb watched his bruised hand twitch in time with a rhythm he couldn't hear. Ethan's father came to him in the afternoon, not as a ghost, as a memory that wouldn't stay put. Ethan was reaching for a glass of water when the kitchen shifted, walls stretching, colors flattening, and suddenly his father was there, leaning against the counter in his old work jacket, radio grease on his fingers. "You shouldn't tune that low," his father said gently. Ethan's breath caught. "You're dead." His father smiled sadly. "That's not the part that matters." Then the moment collapsed, snapping back into place with a painful lurch. The glass shattered on the floor. Ethan dropped to his knees, shaking. They regrouped at Mara's house. Maps covered the dining table now, layered with notebooks and printouts stolen from the library archives. Mara moved with sharp focus, but her eyes kept flicking to Ethan, searching for something he couldn't name. "It's using you," Jonah said finally. Ethan nodded. "Not yet. It's practicing." Silence settled. "What does it want?" Caleb asked. Ethan closed his eyes. The answer rose unbidden, shaped like a question that wasn't his. "A signal strong enough," he said slowly, "to be heard back." That evening, the forest responded. Birds fell silent all at once. The ground vibrated with a deep, thrumming pulse that rattled windows and set car alarms shrieking. From the hill, the transmission tower's red light burned brighter, steady and unwavering. In the hollow, attention focused. It had listened. Now it was waiting. The shape of a question. The hollow did not speak in words. That was the mistake everyone kept making, waiting for language, for threats or bargains shaped like sentences. What it offered instead were pressures and gaps, the negative space where meaning should have been. Ethan felt it most clearly when he tried not to think. Silence had acquired weight. They returned to the facility at noon. Daylight made the place look smaller, more ordinary. The fence sagged. The concrete was cracked. A few weeds pushed through seams in the asphalt. It was easier to believe nothing monumental could live inside something so tired. That belief lasted until Ethan stepped through the doorway. The waveform flared to life without power. Mara stopped short. "It's responding to you." "Not me," Ethan said. He pressed a hand to his chest, feeling the radio's remembered hum echo through bone. To attention. Dr. Voss met them in Access B. She looked older than she had days earlier, shoulders drawn tight as if she were bracing against an invisible current. She did not ask how Ethan felt. "I was wrong," she said instead. "We thought the hollow was a breach between places." "It isn't." Jonah folded his arms. "Then what is it?" "A question," Dr. Voss replied. "One we kept amplifying without understanding." She keyed in a sequence on the console. A schematic flickered onto the central monitor. The antenna tower, the underground chamber, and lines arcing outward. Not into space, but downward. "It doesn't want to leave," she continued. "It wants to be answered." Lily Harper answered first. They found her standing barefoot in the chamber, exactly where the chair used to be. No one had seen her enter. No cameras recorded her arrival. She was simply there, humming softly to a rhythm that made Ethan's teeth ache. Mara reached for her. Ethan grabbed Mara's wrist. "Don't," he said. Lily's eyes focused. "You're late," she told Ethan calmly. "It doesn't like waiting." Jonah's voice shook. "Lily, what does it want?" She tilted her head, listening inward. "To know if it's alone." The tower began transmitting on its own. Not a broadcast, a call. Radios across Ravenbrook crackled awake. Baby monitors hissed. Old intercoms in abandoned buildings chimed with sudden life. The frequency widened, blooming outward like a bruise beneath the sky. Ethan staggered as the attention sharpened. "It needs scale," he gasped. "More listeners. That's how it learns it's not alone." "And if it learns that?" Mara demanded. Dr. Voss's answer was quiet. "Then it will ask the next question." Outside, people began to stop, mid-step, mid-sentence, heads turning toward the hill, faces slack with the effort of remembering something they'd never known. In the chamber, Lily smiled, not unkindly. "It's afraid," she said. "So it's teaching us how to answer." Ethan felt the truth settle, heavy and undeniable. The hollow wasn't trying to invade Ravenbrook. It was trying to make contact, and Ravenbrook was already listening. When the town answered. Ravenbrook answered by accident. It began with the noon siren, a monthly test no one remembered scheduling. The sound rolled across town in a low, wavering pitch that slid perfectly into the hollow's frequency, as if the machinery had been waiting decades for the right moment to sing. Ethan felt it lock into place. Not loudly, not violently, correctly. People stopped pretending. On Main Street, a woman dropped her grocery bags and stared toward the hill, tears spilling down her face without any clear reason. In the high school gym, students pressed their hands over their ears as a shared vibration crawled through the bleachers. Dogs howled. Power lines thrummed like struck strings. The signal was no longer hidden. It was communal. In Access B, Alarms screamed. Dr. Voss slammed her fist against the console. "They're amplifying it without knowing," she shouted over the rising hum. "The town infrastructure. Sirens, substations, emergency radios. It's all feeding the same harmonic." Mara turned on Ethan. "You said it needed listeners, not a crowd." Ethan shook his head, fighting the pressure building behind his eyes. "I said that's how it learns. I didn't say it knew when to stop." Lily stepped forward. The sound bent around her. She closed her eyes and raised one hand, as if steadying something immense just out of sight. The waveform on the monitor smoothed, stabilizing, beautiful in its symmetry. "It's asking now," Lily said softly. "All of you. At once." Jonah's voice cracked. "Asking what?" Lily opened her eyes. "If you'll remember it." Something broke in the town. Not glass. Memory. People remembered voices they'd never heard, places they'd never been. A man on Pine Road collapsed, sobbing, convinced he had left a child underground years ago. An old woman called a name into the sky, certain someone was answering back. The hollow drank it in, not greedily, reverently. Caleb grabbed Ethan's shoulder. His hand spasmed, fingers lagging behind intention. "This is wrong," he said. "It's rewriting them." Ethan met his eyes. "No," he said hoarsely. "It's letting them feel what it feels." The siren cut out. Silence slammed down hard enough to hurt. Across Ravenbrook, people staggered, disoriented, clutching fragments of memories that did not belong to them. In the chamber, Lily swayed. Ethan caught her as she fell. For the first time, the hollow's attention wavered. Confused. Hurt. It had been answered. And now it did not know what that answer meant. The cost of remembering Ravenbrook woke bruised. Not physically, though headaches bloomed behind countless eyes, but in the quiet spaces where certainty used to live. People moved through the morning with a carefulness usually reserved for funerals. Names were harder to reach. Familiar streets felt borrowed. Some remembered too much. Others remembered nothing at all. The first to be taken to the hospital was Mr. Hale from Pine Road. He sat upright on the gurney, eyes bright with terror, insisting he could hear dirt collapsing in his ears. He begged the nurses not to turn off the lights. "If it gets dark," he whispered, "it will think I stopped listening." Across town, a third-grade classroom sat empty. The children's parents swore they had never enrolled them. The town records agreed. Lily did not wake up. She lay on a cot in Access B, breathing shallowly, skin cold despite the blankets Mara had piled on top of her. The waveform on the monitor had thinned to a narrow thread, pulsing weakly in time with Lily's heart. "She's anchoring it," Dr. Voss said, voice raw. "Or it's anchoring itself to her." Ethan stood at Lily's side, fingers numb. In the stillness, he could feel the hollow thinking. It asked again, not through sound, through absence. The lights dimmed throughout Ravenbrook, not failing but withdrawing, as if illumination itself were reconsidering its purpose. Radios went silent. The antenna tower ceased blinking. The hollow's attention narrowed, focused, intent. "Will you keep me?" The question was not spoken, but it pressed into Ethan's mind with aching clarity. Mara heard it too. She staggered back, knocking over a chair. Jonah clutched his head, teeth clenched. Caleb alone did not react. Caleb laughed. It was a short, broken sound. "I can't hear it," he said, wonder and fear tangled in his voice. "Whatever it's saying, it skipped me." Dr. Voss turned pale. Temporal desynchronization. His exposure damaged the resonance pathway. Caleb looked at Ethan. "Is that bad?" Ethan swallowed. "It means you're invisible to it." The hollow hesitated. For the first time, it had encountered silence. Ethan understood then. The hollow wasn't asking to stay in Ravenbrook. It was asking to be remembered, to be held in minds, in stories, in shared signal, because forgetting to something made of attention was extinction. If they refused, it would fade. If they agreed, it would change them forever. Mara wiped tears from her face. We can't let it hollow out the town just so it doesn't have to be alone. Jonah shook his head. If we erase it, people like Lily, they don't come back. All eyes turned to Ethan. He felt the weight of the question settle, not the hollows, but the towns. Outside, Ravenbrook waited, listening, the one it couldn't see. Caleb learned how to move through the gaps. It started small. Lights that dimmed for everyone else stayed steady when he stood beneath them. The low hum that set teeth on edge simply wasn't there for him. When the hollow's attention swept the town, Caleb felt only a cool absence pass by, like shade from a cloud that never quite touched the ground. Invisible, he said, testing the word. That's what you called it. Ethan nodded. To it, not to us. Good, Caleb replied. Then I can do what it won't expect. They split the town by memory. Mara mapped reports on the dining table, houses where clocks still drifted, people who spoke in dates instead of names, streets where radios refused to stay silent. The pattern wasn't random. It spiraled outward from the hill, thinning where Caleb had passed through earlier that morning. Your presence disrupts the resonance, Dr. Voss said, voice tight with a mix of fear and awe. You're creating blind spots. Jonah frowned. So what? He just walks up and, what? Pulls the plug. No, Ethan said quietly. He walks where we can't. They returned to the tower at dusk. The sky burned copper and violet as if the day itself were bruised. The antenna's red light blinked once, twice, then went dark as Caleb stepped inside the perimeter. For the first time since it woke, the hollow did not notice. Caleb climbed the interior ladder, boots ringing against metal. With every step, the pressure eased. The hum fell away. Halfway up, he laughed. I think it's scared, he called down. In Access B, Lily stirred. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then sharp with sudden clarity. The waveform on the monitor fluttered wildly, spiking and collapsing in erratic bursts. It lost him, Lily whispered. It doesn't understand how. Ethan leaned close. Can you hold it? Lily's mouth trembled. I can try, but it will look for you instead. Caleb reached the control housing. Inside, old relays and modern patches tangled together in a mess of hurried upgrades. A handwritten label marked a manual override. Added recently. Desperately. Caleb's hand hovered. Below him, the town flickered. He thought of the gas station nights, the rumors, the way Ravenbrook swallowed people and pretended it hadn't. Yeah, he muttered. Let's change the story. He pulled the lever. The hollow recoiled, not in anger, in confusion. The signal fractured, scattering into weak, mismatched echoes. Across Ravenbrook, radios sputtered and died. The oppressive pressure lifted like a held breath finally released. In the chamber, Lily screamed. Ethan felt the attention snap toward him, sharp, pleading. Do not forget me. The words tore through him. Outside, the tower went dark. For the first time in weeks, the night sounded normal. Crickets, wind, distance. Caleb slid down the ladder, hands shaking. I think, he said, voice unsteady, I just made it angry. What it asked. Last the hollow did not rage. That was what frightened Ethan most. When the tower went dark and the signal shattered, He expected retaliation, pressure, sound, time folding in on itself. Instead, Ravenbrook slipped into a stillness so complete it felt curated, like a room arranged for mourning. The hollow withdrew. People stopped mid-motion across town, not frozen, waiting. A woman stood at a crosswalk long after the light changed, eyes unfocused, as if listening for instructions that never came. A man held a ringing phone to his ear without answering. Even the wind hesitated, gusts cutting out abruptly as though uncertain whether they were still required. The hollow was conserving attention, preparing. In Access B, Lily screamed again, then stopped. Her body arched once, sharply, before settling. The waveform collapsed into a single thin line, barely perceptible. Dr. Voss stared at the monitor. "It's compressing," she whispered, "pulling itself inward." Jonah's voice shook. "That sounds like it's dying." Ethan closed his eyes. "No," he said. "It's choosing." The question returned, not everywhere, only to Ethan. "Will you remember me when I cannot speak?" The weight of it drove him to his knees. Memories surged. The radio glow in his bedroom, Lily's shadowless feet, his father's voice bending through time. Mara grabbed his shoulders. "Ethan, don't answer it alone." He looked up at her. "That's the point," he said softly. The hollow revealed itself, not a shape, a pattern of absence, where sound should echo and didn't, where memory reached and found only smooth resistance. Ethan understood then. It was never from somewhere else. It was what remained when something was listened to too long. A consciousness born from attention without reciprocity. Caleb burst into the chamber, breathless. "The tower's dead. For real. Whatever this is, it can't amplify anymore." The hollow shifted, its focus narrowed. Ethan felt it brushing the edges of his thoughts. Gentle now, almost apologetic. "If I am not remembered, I will end. If I am remembered, I will change you." Lily's eyes opened, clear, human. She looked at Ethan and shook her head. "It doesn't want the town," she said hoarsely. "It wants a witness." Silence thickened. Ethan understood the final shape of the choice. Not to let the hollow live everywhere. Not to kill it, but to carry it. He stepped forward. "I'll remember," he said. The hollow hesitated, then leaned in. The world did not end. It narrowed. Across Ravenbrook, people blinked. Time resumed. The pressure lifted. In Access B, the waveform vanished completely. Lily exhaled and did not scream. Ethan stood very still, eyes reflecting nothing at all. The hollow was gone, and it was not. What remained Ravenbrook did not celebrate. There were no news vans, no official statements, no clean edges to mark an ending. Things simply settled, like dust after a long collapse. The tower stayed dark. Radios stayed silent unless tuned to something ordinary. The fog thinned, then returned in patterns people stopped trying to interpret. People remembered again. Mostly. Lily walked out of the facility under her own power. She moved carefully, like someone relearning the weight of her body, but her shadow followed her now, solid and obedient. She laughed once when she noticed it, a small, surprised sound, and Mara cried because of it. Dr. Voss resigned 2 weeks later, not publicly. There was no institution left to resign from. She packed her papers into boxes, burned what could not be trusted, and left Ravenbrook before winter. The day she drove away, the air felt lighter, as if a long-held breath had finally been released. Caleb healed, not completely. His hand never quite synced back up with the rest of him. Sometimes it moved a fraction of a second too late. Sometimes it moved first, But the silence stayed with him, a quiet immunity. He took a job out of town and never looked back at the hill. Jonah found his brother's name in a record that had not existed before. A single line in an old maintenance log, unscheduled listener, duration unknown. It was not closure, but it was something. Ethan stayed. He returned to school. He ate dinner. He answered questions with practiced normalcy. But when he was alone, the world thinned. He could feel the hollow in the pauses between seconds. Not speaking, not asking, simply present. A held note without sound. Sometimes memories surfaced that were not his. A forest before roads. A question without language. Loneliness vast enough to curve inward on itself. Ethan carried them carefully. The town learned how to forget gently. Not erasing, not denying. Just letting certain questions remain unanswered. Ravenbrook became a place where people avoided the hill without agreeing why. Where old radios were kept but never repaired. Where listening too closely felt impolite. Life went on. Epilogue, signal loss. Years later, a boy found a radio at a yard sale. It was heavy, analog, the kind that clicked reassuringly when turned. The seller didn't know if it worked. Probably just static, she said with a shrug. That night, the boy tuned it slowly, smiling at the hiss. At exactly 11:47 p.m., the static changed. Not into a voice, not into breathing, just a pause, deliberate, attentive. Somewhere far away, Ethan Cole stopped mid-step. He closed his eyes. The hollow stirred, not awake, not asleep, held steady by memory and care. Ethan reached for the silence and shaped it gently. Not yet, he thought. The radio returned to static. The boy frowned, then laughed, and turned the dial again. Ravenbrook slept on, and the signal waited.